We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by Line Movement. Week 14 stacks. We're going to do a little bit of a lineup builder per usual. And I say we because I used to do this basically alone every week. But now I have my man Ryan Hodge with me. Of course, Ryan Hodge was with us last week. A lot of great reviews. One guy was a little bit upset with Hodge for giving him a lineup that did really well on a Wednesday. So I guess we'll just leave that where it's at. But Hodge, I think you should run it back, man, with a lineup that was I guess it wasn't a value lineup, wasn't a leverage lineup, but 3X. It's not good enough for the YouTube people, man. But how was your week 14 overall?
Week 14 was good. I was heavily exposed to both of the two stacks that we went over last week. I was all over the Cleveland Tennessee game. The Arizona Rams game didn't work out as well, considering I had most of the Arizona side of that ball, not the Rams side. But it was a good week. Week 13 was kind to me.
Good stuff, man. So we were just doing a little bit of a Q&A portion, and we went through and kind of did a poll for some of the popular stacks that people were on in the chat. But also we had a question specifically for you because most people know at this point I'm playing a lot of like mid to high stakes, like single entry or 3-max type of stuff. I know you do a little bit of MME for CSGO and a little bit of stuff, but probably more than me for sure, even in NFL in that regard. So someone asked, what type of contests do you like to play for NFL, and how many lineups do you typically make on a given NFL slate usually?
Yeah, so I think for me, it honestly is always going to be slate dependent. So right off the bat, playing the sweep and the spy, the 150 and the $100 single entry. There's the 3-max power sweep, which is 150, and then there's the $50. I think they call it the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
Those are without a doubt my favorite contest.
Okay, nice.
I just, from there, it's bankroll dependent, man. Like the slant is probably the best 150 max bang for your buck on DraftKings. Now, I will say, dude, FanDuel has a fantastic $4, and they have a beginner only $150 $4.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have not met the thresholds on FanDuel, I highly encourage you to play that. I don't care if you've played on DraftKings for the last 3 years. Go learn FanDuel.
Yeah, dude, like both sites, like if you're not past that threshold where you can't play like the $5 and below, like on FanDuel, literally there's tournaments that like I can't even play at this point, right? There's a lot of people that like been doing this for a long time that don't even have access to those. So like, yeah, you're losing money every time you don't play those if you're just giving up those beginner contests. Yeah, learn FanDuel at that point, man. So I'm with you. FanDuel is actually interesting from like a contest selection standpoint now. It used to be much worse in terms of like certain structured things we look for than DraftKings, but now you get a decent amount of contests out there that'll double your buy-in basically for a min cash. DraftKings like barely ever has that anymore. Like the one thing that I guess is unfortunate about FanDuel, sometimes they're a little bit more top heavy in general, but I kind of like some of the structures on FanDuel overall. Like, do you see yourself playing, or do you, I guess in general, play mostly on DraftKings still?
So I actually think the structures for the spy and the slant are very good, but FanDuel, without a doubt, that $4 is, I think, the best. Now, I don't know what Yahoo is offering, and I definitely don't know what like Super Draft is offering, but I think that $4 on FanDuel for a mid-stakes player is the best contest you can play in, hands down. For if you're specifically looking to run like 80 to 150 lineups, like you don't have to max it just because it's 150. You could easily play 50 or 100 lineups in there. I think that is the best contest selection that there is. It's 2x. It's not raked like insanely hard, and it's relatively flat. And it's not that big either, which is my favorite part. Is I think there's only, because they have one that's for beginners only, and then they also have one that's not for beginners that I can play in that is a little bit larger, but I honestly think it's only like 20,000 entrants.
Nice. Okay.
And that's probably one of the biggest things that I look for. Like, I understand people want to learn multi-entry and they want to play 150, and it's really appealing to go do that at $75 or whatever the mini max is. Dude, that thing's harder to win than the Millie Maker, I swear. Like,
seriously,
it's extremely tough. It's a very tough contest. So I would encourage you to check out that $4 on FanDuel.
I think
And look,
one thing too that I want to ask you while we're on this subject, like I used to think of like correlation as like if I was to just completely game stack something that'd be like a lineup that would be something I would throw in the millionaire. Leone basically told me I was wrong, and the more I thought about it, I think he's right. Like sometimes like you can't get like that complete like 1%, 0.5% like top end outcome for every single player in a game stack. You have to be perfect, right? In order to get perfect for like something like the millionaire maker, even some of these ones that are like 15K people and above, like you kind of do need these one-offs like just to go completely nuclear. I actually think that the field size that I typically play in, like 250 people and below, it does make more sense to fully game stack because then it's less decisions, but you also don't need that true ceiling outcome to win a tournament that's that size. So you agree with Leone? Because I think I was just like wrong about that for a long time.
Yeah, it's not even agreeing with Leone. Well, I mean, I guess it is, but look at the data. If you go look at what's winning week over week over week on FanDuel and on DraftKings, there are very few 5-man stacks coming in. It's a lot more of those skinnier stacks and having to be perfect at every single spot. Last week, the lineup that we built on this show, I think, is a perfect example. It was like just shy of 190, and it was like the stone nuts of a lineup, but AJ Brown put up like 11 points instead of the 28 that you would have needed. But that was a full onslaught, and it just didn't work out. So it was a great lineup in the SPY, right? But it was not. I think it min cashed in the millie, right? So it's just like totally different.
Yeah. So I think that's a big part of it to think through it. Like I think for this segment in particular, we're kind of building like some game stacks. It is early in the week to try and piece through like what the best leverage options are going to be for one-offs and that sort of thing. But I thought it'd be good to kind of go through that. I think one thing that Overzet has said too, like playing some of these other sports has just made him a better DFS player. So you think that like obviously you're very into CSGO and esports and that sort of stuff on the DraftKings side of things. Do you think that's made you a better NFL player in some ways?
I actually think it might actually be the opposite. I think playing NFL tournaments made me a better CSGO player.
Makes sense.
And those just correlate because of like how volatile CSGO is. And it's very much like baseball. You know, Mike Trout can go 0 for 4, but he's still the best baseball player, so on and so forth. Or like it's basically like Counter-Strike DFS is picking an entire team of wide receivers. That's kind of what it is. So I don't know if playing other sports have made me better at NFL. I just think shifting to one game variant has made me a better DFS player and focusing on very specific builds for very specific contests. That
That's a great answer. Yeah, no,
I think
that's exactly kind of what I was thinking was the opposite, but I think that makes a lot of sense overall. We're going to have to do a show at some point. You can teach me the CSGO stuff, man. So it seems like a lot of fun overall. So
I would love to.
Let's do it. We'll wait for things to calm down a little bit. I can't believe week 14, man. So let's dive into this first stack that you have for us today as we're walking through. Sigmund Bloom said earlier in the week, just play everyone against Detroit, right? So Green Bay, Detroit, one of the higher totals on the week. Rodgers is someone that I probably haven't played enough of this season for sure. Just like they've been so efficient. I feel at least like I can capture the upside of Rodgers just by playing Adams, but that hasn't necessarily been the case. So what do you have for us in this Green Bay and Detroit game?
Yeah, the Green Bay Detroit game, when I first looked at this, I am making an assumption that this is probably going to be one of the most stacked games. And then as I started to build, I actually think that ownership of this as a game environment might come down a little bit. It's not easy to build around these guys unless you punt at both of your running back spots. But yeah, for this, look, I don't know. I don't think we need to get overly cute and play the Detroit side of the ball here. I think you just play Rodgers. I think you just play Devontae Adams. And the tricky question is who do you bring it back with? Now, Kenny Golladay missed practice today. We're recording this on Wednesday at like 5 Eastern. He was not in practice today. So that honestly leaves us with two viable options depending on your contest selection. But I ultimately think that this leaves us with with Jones, or it leaves us with Hawkinson at tight end.
Yeah, I think so. I have some thoughts here. So, yes, we would love to take care of tight end with our stack. One of the things that we just talked about with Matt Harmon is that like there's going to be a lot of chalky pieces in this game. At least early in the week, it's looking like that. So it might make more sense to get away from Robert Tonyan, because I think that's just an easy thing to do with the Rodgers stack. Just put Tonyan in it. I think it might make sense to make Hawkinson the bring back of that one. And maybe we do add a guy like Allen Lazard at 5K, who's probably a little bit too expensive based on his volume overall. But we see MVS drop another deep ball and Rodgers just be extremely frustrated. We probably could. Like Tonyan, I think will be more popular if we were to kind of do a double stack with Rodgers. So are you cool with that one overall? I think that gives us a little bit of leverage off of, I think, Tonyan, but also Aaron Jones, who I think will be at least, 15% and something like this?
Yeah, I do. I do think Aaron Jones is going to carry a lot of ownership. Can I pop quiz you on the Green Bay's market share? Well, not market share, but their total weighted opportunity rating. Do you know who's underneath Adams?
Yeah, I'm going to bring up right now. Here, I'll just bring up the line movement data table and we'll tell you here. So if we go up to wide receiver, weighted opportunity, and see what these Green Bay guys. So Devontae Adams leading the entire slate, unsurprisingly. Let's add more of these guys here.
And then there's a massive drop off between him and his next
MVS, and it's like not like 0.39 is like nothing overall. So it's like that's like one of the most drastic ones I think I've ever seen, if I'm being completely honest. So that's pretty wild, actually.
I think I want to I think I want to skinny stack this game, as skinny as possible.
No Lazard.
I think you can do Lazard. But I think if you're going to play a secondary Green Bay wide receiver, like I'm gonna play the cheap guy. This is so expensive.
Sure.
And since we're getting away from Tonyan chalk, so when I built this, I was building for the spy, and I kept it skinny actually in the spy.
In your defense, actually, looking at the Lazard correlation versus Devontae Adams, it's a pretty significant negative correlation right now, at least. Probably a little bit touchdown driven, but no, I'm fine with the skinny. So I guess early in the week that we're still trying to figure out what some of the better value plays and stuff are going to be. Still, there's a lot of wide receiver that we could go to. This Dallas and Cincinnati game has a lot of cheaper options overall. But as you were kind of working through this build earlier today, what did you kind of go from here?
So I plugged in. We have Hawkinson at tight end, right? Just so I can get my salary lined up with yours. I immediately plugged in Myles Gaskin.
Yep.
I think
still
you've got
too cheap.
Dude, $5,600. Chiefs are 30th in rush DVOA, and his usage is phenomenal. I mean, it's not quite James Robinson levels, but it's definitely he's being targeted multiple times a game. So for me, Myles Gaskin was just like a super cheap, easy plug and play.
What if he scores on one of those like touches he gets inside the 5? His price is not 5,600. It's probably 6,300, 6,200, something like that, right? So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, and he has like a 22-point day instead of 16 or whatever it was, right? So for defense, you want to do defense and just get rid of that.
Sure. Yeah, sometimes it's nice. It gives you a better idea of salary if we get that out of the way, or at least a placeholder.
So I did 49ers against Washington because they're like that mid-tier. Like I said, I usually try and find somebody. Yeah.
Cool.
So there's that. And then look at the rest of this lineup. I think there's two ways that you can start to build. Devontae Adams, TJ Hawkinson, and Rodgers are not cheap at those positions. So this is where we can either eat wide receiver value and play guys like Tyler Boyd, depending on T. Higgins' status, who practiced limited today. We can play CeeDee Lamb, who's like $4,800. There's a decent amount of wide receiver value, but as you're building this, that's probably where the slate starts to gravitate to. Right? I think Mike Williams is 5K. Like,
yeah, we got Tim Patrick at 4,200 is going to draw some ownership. We got Kiki Kute, who's 5K. Like there's a bunch of guys down there. Like T. Higgins, like you mentioned, if he plays 4,800. Even like the Jets guys, they're still super cheap. People are taking flyers.
Mims is 41, right?
Yeah. So we could do something like that too. I think let's think through. Like, do we have a clear target like be a little bit more expensive, and then maybe we pick one of these options with like a little bit of a mini stack, something like that. So like if we do like the Boyd side of things, we could just go Boyd Lamb and see where we're at with like a little mini correlation with those like kind of mid cheap wide receivers.
Yep, I think going Boyd Lamb is great, or going Lamb Giovanni Bernard.
Okay, walk me through the Geo thing. Someone mentioned that in the chat earlier. I haven't had a chance to look into it yet.
He's 5K against Dallas.
He's very cheap. He's very cheap.
Is there anything else?
Okay, fair enough.
I think anything that I say from there is trying to justify it in my head to play it, when at the end of the day, it's a $5,000 running back going up against Dallas, who I think is dead last in rush DVOA. I need to go check. Yep, 32nd, right behind Las Vegas and Kansas City.
These geo types of things like that's like, so it's very borderline for me in terms of like the amount of touches, but just looking at it like at line movement right now, we have Geo at 17.5 touches. So I'm okay with that. If we don't want to go Boyd, that takes care of another running back slot for us.
And that's where I kind of want to go. Look, I also think it's important, like we're building this for the milli, right? This is what we're entering it in. This is what we're playing it in. So for me, I want to just be a little bit unique in my construction here. And I think 2 punt running backs and moving away from the guys who I have projected as chalk of Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook. Is Christian McCaffrey going to be active? Yeah,
we just got some news earlier today that he got banged up in like a workout, like a personal workout last week. This guy just can't get back on the field, man. I don't think we can put CMC in on Wednesday. We could find out tomorrow that he's out. So
right, but James Robinson, Austin Eckler, I have every single one of those running backs, and then I think Aaron Jones is going to be fringe 20% and above. That's like 5 running backs that I'm projecting on a Wednesday to be 20% owned or more. So I think if we fade some of those guys and get a little bit cute at our running back spot and we go Geo, it opens up the salary to start maybe getting in one more mid-tier wide receiver, which I think is just going to be unique in itself, having Adams and somebody else who's like above 6K in this type of a lineup.
Cool. Well, Hodge, let's finish this lineup out, and then I'm actually going to come in and record the second half of this. We have a little bit of a line movement dilemma that I actually have to pivot over to right now, unfortunately. So, what are you thinking for these last 2 slots?
Yeah, for these last 2 slots to fill it out, I'm going to play Mike Williams, which is foreshadowing, and then I think that from here, like, there's a lot of different options that we could end up doing. Let me check a couple different value guys who I have.
So we got Brandon Ayuk, but then I think that one would be interesting. Maybe DJ Chark one off, someone like that. I'm trying to think of what Chark's ownership would be like in that range, but I don't mind that one.
I think Chark. So I went with Mims as one of the wide receivers, and then that gives us $6,100 in our flex spot. Dude, Chark was actually a guy who I built in a preliminary lineup before I hopped on the show with you.
Okay.
So this is from there. I think like you have a lot that you can do. The interesting thing with Chark is I think he still saw like 9 targets from Glennon last week.
Yeah,
and he caught like 3 or 4 of them. But
I don't mind this one, man. I think this is pretty solid.
I'll let you fill out that last flex spot.
Yeah, so I got Mike Williams and then Chark in there right now. So I'll shoot this over to you after, so we can not get people to yell at us in the comments and all that stuff, man. And we'll make sure we get a full segment in here. This is public company life, man. Sometimes things get thrown at us. So appreciate everyone that's here in the chat. This video will be going up tomorrow anyway, so I'll give you one of my favorite stacks, and that we'll build one more lineup. But Hodge, appreciate it, my man. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Before we get back at it, always want to mention for everyone out there that we do have a Patreon, but the big thing is this is just how we're growing our community past just the live streams. I know a lot of you guys want to continue those conversations that you're having in chat. throughout the week. So that's what we've done here. $1 per month, 25 cents per week gives you access to our premium Discord chat community, talking fantasy football, DFS, sports betting, a lot of different things, of course, but a lot of sharp people in there that are willing to help you learn if you're new to any of those things as well. You'll get access to our exclusive weekly DraftKings tournament this week. Basically, every rating and review that I get on Apple Podcasts, I'm going to throw in an extra $1 into the prize pool for the winner. It's a lot for bragging rights in general in this DraftKings contest, but it's been a lot of fun. We usually give away like an Amazon gift card, $30, Amazon $25, whatever we've been doing over the past few weeks. This week we're doing a little bit different with the ratings and reviews. We also have an NFL Red Zone stream room in there, so if you want to come watch the games with us, sweat with a group of like-minded fantasy football DFS people, it's always a lot of fun. An exclusive 15 to 30 minute live stream directly before kickoff. So my final thoughts. This is a stream that is not on YouTube and is only for the Patreons in the Discord. So hopefully I'll see you guys in there. It's been a lot of fun seeing this thing grow and a lot of really smart people in there talking throughout the week. So if you're watching this, you're already a Patreon, appreciate you guys, and hopefully we'll continue to grow this thing as the season goes on. All right, it was definitely a bummer to kind of cut that short on the live stream, so officially on my own for this one now. But thanks again to Ryan Hodge for jumping on for the first half of the Stacks Plus Lineup Builder video. Going to push forward with the stack from one of the games that I know he likes a ton as well. But it's nice to have a little bit of ownership contest now, recording this portion of the video on a Thursday. So this Chargers-Falcons game, guys, extremely enticing overall, especially now that Herbert's salary is actually increased after that performance somehow against New England in Week 13. So I think this game is super interesting overall, and I think it could come in moderately owned. I was kind of worried about it overall as we were going through this segment yesterday, but I think that just looking at projections right now in terms of the ownership, I think there's still some other stacks and other games that might be a little bit more popular. The other thing I like about this game is that it is a 425 start, so we'll get some late swap equity here as well, which is going to be super important on this slate in particular with a lot of games in the afternoon. So I like that quite a bit. One of the things that I think is interesting is that I do like the Chargers side a ton. Herbert is a lot more expensive than the Atlanta side of this game. So while I do think that Herbert is in an amazing bounce back spot, guys like Austin Eckler, I think they can definitely have a great game here against this Atlanta defense that's been giving it up and that has been involved in a ton of shootouts, both of these teams, right? So I think that's I think either of these sides are definitely viable for sure. But Matt Ryan, like, he struggled a little bit of late, but I mean, that price discount off of Herbert, $1,100, very useful for this slate overall, especially if you are going to be in a late swap situation where maybe you want to move away from something that's chalky into something that might be a little bit more low owned. So I think that that's interesting. So I'm going to go with Matt Ryan on this one. I am going to pair him with Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley, guys, man, like, this guy, I understand that he is very expensive, but he just has been dominating overall in terms of target share, air yards over the past 4 games, a massive 0.66 weighted opportunity rating, 40% air yard share. And I actually am, for now at least, going to put Julio in this stack, 6,600. He's getting healthier from my perspective, right? 63 of 67 snaps last week. He saw 10 targets actually in his return to the lineup, though he didn't score, but caught 6 balls for 94 yards. So I think that he looks like he is relatively healthy. The Atlanta Falcons have held him out of practice both on Wednesday and Thursday with that hamstring injury. I think it feels like it's a little bit more cautious in general. I don't know if he had any setback or anything like that. So I think that if you are going to roll Julio with this stack overall, make sure you check and see what his participation level was like in Friday's practice, because that's definitely going to kind of determine his status overall. But if he plays, I think enough people are going to be scared off of Julio. The 6,600 in this spot is a great way to attack the Atlanta side of the ball. Obviously, a very condensed situation. So originally, I was kind of on the Austin Eckler bring back here, and I still think he's a fantastic play, but it looks like he's going to be significantly higher owned than Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen, at least what I'm looking at right now, could come in at like 9 to 12% ownership. Guys, I'm all over that. I understand this is a very expensive stack overall, but the price tag of Matt Ryan, I think we'll be able to make this work. We'll see. We're going to build a lineup here on the fly. So I think it's really interesting. Keenan Allen, if he is that low owned. Even in that loss last week to New England, still managed 11 targets. He's seen double-digit targets in 9 of 10 complete games since Herbert started in week 2. So I love the idea of going back to him in this spot at a little bit lower ownership. I think that even like obviously last week, their shutout to New England that ended his 5-game scoring streak for Allen. I think he gets back on track against this Atlanta team that's just been giving it up to wide receivers overall, 29th in the league. So where does that leave us, guys, in terms of salary here? So let's talk a little bit about some plays that we can put around this. I do want to put in a defense here, at least somewhat of a placeholder to give us an idea of where we're at in this lineup builder. So I think some of the cheaper ones, we talked about San Francisco, they're 2,700. I think that both of the defenses are probably in play for this Dallas and Cincinnati game overall. Seattle's 3K. So they're probably going to be a chalkier option, but I think that they're probably one of the best ones against the Jets. So I sometimes yes, it's nice to put in the cheapest defense possible, but let's see what happens if we just put in Seattle here to give us a little bit more flexibility. If we have to move down, we can. But for right now, really like this spot for Seattle overall. So we're in a little bit of a pinch here in terms of salary, right? So what can we do on the running back side of things in terms of just saving a little bit of salary, right? So I do think that Myles Gaskin, 5,600, who we talked about, is super interesting. J.D. McKissic against San Francisco, I think is going to draw a little bit of ownership, obviously with Gibson banged up. Tough break for season-long owners for Gibson. So Gibson's someone that still had 10 targets in this past week. So he's kind of interesting, I think, from a DraftKings perspective. He's only 4,900. So I think that's a spot that we could go to. Gaskin is the one that I think probably has the better workload of the two as of right now. But I think both of these guys are in play. So let's put in McKissic and Gaskin for now, because I think that they might be able to help us get through some of these salary issues that we're having with this stack in particular. So after we get those guys in, we still are going to have to probably find a relatively cheap tight end overall. So that's interesting. One thing we could do, McKissic, and I guess if we wanted to add to our little mini correlation here, we could add Logan Thomas to that. Just looking at their correlations, Logan Thomas, basically a neutral correlation, 0.1 R value for those guys. So they don't directly negatively correlate like I initially thought they might. But Logan Thomas and a really touchdown heavy type of option like Gibson, that's one that I probably wouldn't go to. So I do like Logan Thomas a lot if you're looking to save salary this week. So let's just add him in for right now, because I think he's still far too cheap. 5,700 in the flex. What does that leave us with here, guys? So we got Corey Davis in a great spot against Jacksonville. We just talked about with Reeves earlier in the week that people just don't want to go there. They just don't, for whatever it is. But we can. The one thing that I kind of like about this, what we're building here, is another maybe potential mini stack overall. So someone like Brandon Ayuk at 5,400, I still think that he's a really solid play this week. He had 9 targets last week. In the game that he played before, he had 14 targets. He's had some injury issues this year, but I like the idea of adding to our little mini stack. What do you guys think? I talk like I'm actually still talking to the chat. I wish that we were able to do this live like we do every week. But I think this is what we're going to go with for the lineup builder portion. Let me know in the comments what your favorite stack is for week 14. And we'll see you guys obviously Mondays, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Now we have a stream on Thursday nights before Thursday Night Football. Going to be adding that this week at 7 p.m. That's going to be with Peter Overzet and myself. And then we'll be doing a showdown breakdown on Peter's channel on Mondays before Monday Night Football. So that's super exciting. And of course, the big show on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. So I'll see you guys for that one. Toss a like on this video if you get a chance, and also subscribe to the channel if you feel like you've gotten some value throughout this portion. Definitely let me know what you guys think of just bringing on guests for this overall. Normally we were kind of doing this one alone, but it's nice having Hodge around for these ones, right? So I'll see you guys on Sunday morning. Talk to you very soon.